Alright, today I got an off-kilt video for you. Been thinking of how a Chinese tech tree would look in War Thunder. Now, before everyone gets all angry and dislikes the video, I have to say that I'm not going to be pushing for a Chinese tech tree to actually be in War Thunder. I'm not sure if it would work entirely. It gets kind of hard near tier 3 and 4, trying to avoid copy-paste vehicles. I'm not going to at least push for it till we get French aircraft and maybe some other tree, but I'm just saying it's not the worst idea out there. Anyways, for more bantering, I'm going to get on to the vehicles. Start off with Nationalist fighter line. I'm going to start off with the reserve vehicles, or with a lesser known one, the P-12, or at least the export model 218, which I believe has the same flight characteristics as the normal P-12. Oh yeah, Wikipedia and other sources will be linked in the description, as they usually do. So if you want to look at these vehicles yourself, they will be there. P-12 is nothing really amazing or anything. It carried two 30 cals. Well, they've also had the ability to carry one 50 cal, 130 cal, although that might just be for the regular models. The P-12 variant was a prototype for the P-12E and the F-4B3 variants, and after evaluation they were sold to China. Next down the line, something a bit closer to home, the P-26 pea shooter, or more or less the export variant model 218, which is just a rename of the C variant of the P-26. But what's great about this is we don't have the C variant in game, so it's not like it would be a necessary addition to the US tech tree, so I see no harm in adding this to a Chinese tech tree. After that we have the CR.32. Now I know what you're saying, the CR.32, that's just a copy-paste of the Italian reserve. It is, and it isn't. The Chinese CR.32, they were originally sent over without guns, so the Chinese put 7.7 Vickers machine guns in them. So with this slight modification, it's less copy-paste. Next down the line, we get something that people may be a bit more familiar with, the Hawk 2, or the Goshawk, or whatever the hell it's called. Now, this vehicle is used actually by quite a few other countries, including the US and Germany, although Germany only evaluated the aircraft. There's plenty of other minor countries that use them, but this certain variant, the F-11C, was used by China. It was also used by the other smaller countries. If this aircraft was to be added to the US tree for whatever reason, it would not be entirely copy-paste, because it's a slight different variant on the one China used and the one the US used. After that, we have something that I found digging through Wikipedia that I'm quite happy I found, is the Breda Ba.27. Now, if you're wondering from the name, that's an Italian aircraft. Shouldn't that be in the Italian tree? Perhaps it should, but if you read through its history and development, you'll learn that after evaluation, the Italians didn't really care for it, didn't want it. So it was sold to China to fight the Japanese. 18 machines were ordered, but only 11 ever made it to China. It has two Breda stuff of 50 cals, which are basically 30 cals. Perhaps this one should be a bit further up in the tree, but I don't know. I guess I should put it as a remark, as I'm not a genius when it comes to aircraft. So feel free to tell me where I was wrong on where these should be in the tree, or if they should be in the tree at all. So after that, I have another well-known aircraft for Chinese Air Force. It is the Curtiss Hawk 3. The Chinese used the 102 Model 68C Hawk 3s, armed with one 30 cal, one 50 cal, and had a small bomb load. After that, the Curtiss-Wright CR-21. CR-21, a U.S. aircraft, was only used by two Air Force, the Royal Netherlands East Indies Air Force and the Chinese Nationalist Air Force. The Chinese used just the Model 21, while I believe the Dutch East Indies used the Model 21A and 21B. I would have to look further into that, but regardless, the models that used by the Dutch and the Chinese were different. Also, Dutch isn't a major nation currently in trees, so this is a perfectly fine aircraft, armed with two 50 cals and two 30 cals. It's also rather fast. It's an interceptor. Then we have the rather well-known Hawk 75. China used the two Q models, the M model and the A5. The M5, it was also used by the British somewhere in the Pacific, but it was also used by the Chinese. Currently, as I see, the British don't really need a Hawk 75 in their tree. There's no gaps in the early tree that this would fill, and as a premium wouldn't really bring much to the table either. And I also saw an extensive amount of use in China. I don't know about British, I'd have to read a bit more into it. And the final aircraft for the Nationalist fighter line is the P-66. P-66 has a rather interesting history with being ordered for Sweden, not being sent to Sweden, being used by the US as a trainer, and then eventually being sent to China. It's armed with four 30 cals and two 50 cals, and has similar performance to the P-36s. For the communist forces, I actually have another nationalist aircraft, but it's a Russian one. The I-15, that's the only aircraft, the Russian aircraft I could find that would fit in Tier 1 that was used by China, and I believe it was also used by the commie forces when they eventually got aircraft, but early on in the war, they didn't really have anything because they were just rebels, really. They used the regular I-15, the I-15 bis, the I-153. I also heard rumors of a special variant that used a US engine and it was faster, but that could be completely fake. I haven't found any info or any photos of it. I also made a ground attacker line. The first one is some French aircraft that I'm having a really hard time pronouncing the name. Breda Ba.27 series. There was a export variant, the Breda Ba.27, used by Venezuela, but also China. Venezuela isn't a major country in the game, so I think it's perfectly okay for this to be in the Chinese tech tree. It's a very old French aircraft. It has one fixed forward firing 7.7, two defensive 7.7 Lewis guns. You could carry a small amount of bombs, but I was thinking for maybe 1.0 this would be an alright ground attacker. It could be too bad for the game, but with the extensive amount of fighters that I was able to find that would fit Tier 1, I think it's okay to take out a few of these ground attackers. We really only need 6 aircraft for each tier, although you should typically have more than 6 for the first tier, but whatever. The next one up is the Vultee V11, which is a US ground attacker. It also was sent around the world to multiple different countries. It was also used by the United States. But what makes it so that it would not just be a copycat of a possible US vehicle is that the Chinese used a different variant than the US. The US used the V19 variant, and they didn't use it that extensively. While China used actually about 3, I think it was, variants. The V11G, the V12C, and the V12D. The main difference between these aircraft is the engine being more or less powerful as the variants go down the line. And as you can see, none of them are V19s that were used by the US. What was also kind of funny is the Soviets had their own variant of the V11BGB called the Brish-1. It would be kind of a silly premium added to the game. Next one is actually a very interesting kind of odd aircraft because of its many non-combat uses. It is the Northrop Gamma. It was used as a mail plane, fly packages or whatever across countries. It was also used as a dive bomber or ground attacker or something for China. China used the E2 variant, which could carry 727 kilograms of bombs. I believe it was also armed by 2 30 cals, but I don't remember. But this aircraft has a quite extensive history of other roles, used in many different areas, including by Japan. A very interesting aircraft, very odd looking aircraft. We'd love to see it in game regardless of what nation, because it's just a cool looking aircraft. After that, I have something that nobody is going to be expecting, the CJ-5. The CJ-5 was a Chinese version of the Yak-18, which is a Russian trainer. Now, why am I adding a Russian trainer to a Chinese tree? It's actually kind of a silly role. The first flight of the Yak-19 was in 1946, so it's also after the war. So why is this here? See, China, during the Korean War, was allied with North Korea, and North Korea was given these trainers to use to train people, but they had a better idea, decided to use them in the slimmer sense that the Po-2 was used as night raiding bombers, and they actually did quite a lot of damage. But even funnier about that is North Korea actually is rumored to still use them today. Most likely just as trainers now, that they have some better aircraft. But it's possible that they have a shortage of better aircraft and they need to use something to, bolster their numbers. But anyways, it's able to carry a small amount of bombs and rockets and I believe has two 30 cal machine guns. And after that, this one's a bit more of a stretch, is the CJ-6, which is a further development of the Yak-18. But this one is also used by North Korea as, I believe, a bomber. I don't know for sure if they ever did use it as a bomber, but I know they use it as a trainer. I guess it's a bit of a stretch. If nobody really wants it, it won't harm the tree too much to take it out. But I think it's a silly aircraft. It's very out of place being at Tier 1, but it's still within the time limits of War Thunder. If you think using North Korean aircraft for the Chinese tree is out of place, then I would point to the Czechoslovakian tanks in the German tree. For bombers, I found a bunch of very interesting bombers that somehow found their way to China over the years. Start off also a bit of a stretch, but I personally like it. The Ca.111. It's odd enough is Wikipedia does not state that this vehicle saw combat in China, but I found a photo of a Chinese crew sitting outside of their Ca.111. Although it was also heavily used by Italy, so I think this may be one of the vehicles that would better off fit the Italian tree. But in the case that it does not, it would go perfectly well in the Chinese tree. There's also the Ca.101, which Wikipedia does state that saw combat in China, but was also used by Italy and Hungary. So once again, perhaps it would be better in its home tree, but in the case that it does not, or it is not needed, it can find home in China. After that, we have one of my favorite vehicles, the BT-32, which is a medium bomber biplane. It was typically used as a airliner, but there was a bomber variant used by Peru, Colombia, and China. And Peru isn't a major nation in War Thunder currently, and the Colombian version was a float plane. What makes me actually kind of jealous, I would love to have a biplane, float plane, medium bomber. It's the silliest looking airplane in my personal opinion. It was outfitted with about 5 flexible machine guns and could carry 762 kilograms of bombs. After that, we have the Savoia-Marchetti S.72. Now you're thinking, hey, this is an Italian bomber. It should be on the Italian tree. Well, similar to the Breda Ba.27, after Italy saw how this thing performs, they're like, yo, we don't want that. And China was like, hey, we'll take it. So about 5 were sold to China. Unfortunately, the Japanese bombed them before they could be used as bombers. Regardless, there's plenty of prototypes that never saw combat already in game, so I see it as a perfectly good aircraft. It had up to 6 7.7 machine guns, one 20mm cannon, and carried 1,000 kilograms of bombs. We have an import from Germany, the HE-111A. The 111A, well, many would probably say that it should be in German tech tree. I say that the Germans don't need it. It would be redundant in their home tech tree, but in a Chinese tech tree, they would stand out. Well, this model of the aircraft also saw service in Spain. It was used both as a bomber and a airliner. Obviously, as the war got harder and harder, they had to stop using airliner. Eventually, the U.S. sold them some B-10Bs that kind of retired the HE-11A. I don't know the exact bomb loads of this model or its gun loadout, but it seems to be rather skim for being such an early model. So that's why it's so far down here in the tech tree. After that, we have another aircraft that I'm not entirely confident in putting in the tree because it's already in the US tree as a premium, the Martin B-10B. But the Chinese used an export variant, the model 139 WC and WC2. I don't know what the difference in these are compared to the standard model, so that's also why I'm not so confident in it. Perhaps you could put it in the premium line, but I don't know. We could get the premiums once the tree is a bit more fleshed out or formed out. I plan on doing a video for each rank, although the later ranks are going to be really hard to not use copy-paste vehicles. And once again, I'm not trying to push for a Chinese tree currently. There's no real necessity for one. Honestly, French aircraft look a little better. They also have a jet called the Grognard, which I think is the best name for a jet, although it's only a prototype. Whatever. But anyways, this is kind of my proposed Tier 1 tech tree for China. If you've enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, as I said, I plan to make more. I'm also planning to make ones not just on China. We had a viewer who was talking about a Polish tech tree. I think it would be kind of fun to go over the Polish vehicles and talk about where they would be in tech tree. And you know, if there's any other vehicles that you would want to, any other tech trees that you would want me to throw together, hey, maybe I could make that Venezuela tech tree. I doubt it though, but hey, don't give up so soon. Anyways, yeah, as I was saying, hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. Tell me what other trees that you'd like to see. I really like researching old aircraft, so it will be no problem to me no matter what tree. I also plan to do some videos covering some possible, I guess you could call them expansions, but more of just more aircraft you could add to the already existing tech trees. So yeah, thanks for watching. That's all the vehicles. I hope you have a good day. Yeah.